Tonight, we bring you the latest installment of Second Take's March Madness Special. I'm your host, Aaron Campbell, and I'm joined at the desk by Pete Whitmer and Nick Powell. In our last episode, we looked at the opening field of 64 and gave you our predictions. We've come a long way since then, and the field has now been whittled down to the final 4 teams. The first 4 rounds brought plenty of surprises. Michigan cracking the Sweet 16, Oregon beating Kansas in Elite 8 play, and Duke being knocked out in the Sweet 16 by South Carolina, to name a few. Pete, what was your biggest takeaway from the first 4 rounds?
Well, Aaron, thanks again for having us on this week's edition of Second Take. Again, she mentioned it. I'm alongside the meatball, Nicholas Powell, on this casual Friday, rocking some of our favorite teams here as the NCAA tournament winds down, But for me, the biggest thing I took away from the first few rounds is really the coaching. When you think about some of the names that exited the tournament early, as well as some of the unknown names that are making it to their first ever Final Four. Some of those names being Coach Frank Martin at South Carolina, getting his guys to the first Final Four in program history. Coach Mark Few at Gonzaga. We all know the talent he's had, but to finally get these guys over the hump, to me, that's the biggest story for this NCAA tournament. Some of the coaches and the program's history that they're making along the way.
Absolutely, Pete. I agree with you 100%. Got a shout out to my Columbus Blue Jackets making the playoffs. Outstanding. Want them to win the President's Cup. Got to raise some kind of banner up there. It's naked up there. What I'm going to take away, I'm going to go, because I'm a homer, I'm going a little bit more closer to home. I really like what the Big Ten did in this tournament. They overachieved to reach the second weekend, I think. Michigan cooled off and was unable to pull off the upset, but they got so close, and Wisconsin as well had a heck of a tournament, and I think they really saved the reputation of the Big Ten this year. Now, Michigan is sitting pretty next year as well. For the big dance with Kentucky transfer Charles Matthews joining the team. The abbreviated run this season, I think, adds a lot of crucial tournament experience and also adds extra firepower and motivation for Matthews. And they're definitely going to be an early favorite for next year's tournament. Wisconsin's not so lucky. After a back-to-back Final Four appearance from the senior class, they lose a lot of firepower. But they got some rebuilding to do. But all in all, I really like what the Big Ten did, and I think saved the season this year.
A quick question here, real quick for you, Nick. I noticed you left one Big Ten team out in particular with a Sweet 16 matchup. Can you elaborate kind of why you left Purdue out in the Big Ten mix?
I don't like them.
That 30-point blowout might have had something to do with it.
Yeah,
but
there's not much I can say about that.
Aaron, bring us forward.
Well, guys, I think my favorite surprise of this NCAA tournament has been the Cinderella story of South Carolina. They are a team that hadn't won an NCAA tournament game since 1973, but this year Sindarius Thornwell and the Gamecocks have been on fire, taking out the Vegas tournament favorite Blue Devils on their way to the school's first ever Final Four appearance. This Saturday, those Final Four games will be played in Glendale, Arizona. First on the slate is 1-seed Gonzaga against the aforementioned 7-seed South Carolina. Can Mark Few's Bulldogs keep up their defensive efficiency and live up to their seeding by bouncing the steamrolling Gamecocks? South Carolina has been peaking offensively in this tournament. They're averaging 82 points per game in the tourney versus 72.1 in regular season play. Will they be able to keep up the strong offensive numbers and of course, that strong stalwart defense that they're known for, that they've been putting up to beat the Zags and continue the story in the national championship game? Nick, what do you see happening here?
Thank you, Aaron. I got Gonzaga in this game, simply put because their depth is going to help them navigate the adversity that is that South Carolina defense. Gonzaga has the best equipped team in the Final Four to weather adversity, and that's because of their depth. They have a legit 9-man roster, guys like Silas Melson, Jonathan Williams, Nigel Williams-Goss. They have legitimate depth, and that depth gets them past the Final Four and into the tournament.
Well, I agree kind of with Aaron here as far as some of the stats go with South Carolina. Their defense, first time in program history getting to the Final Four, the run that they're on. Defense holding shooters to less than 41% shooting as a team is unheard of. I like the Gamecocks defense against anyone in this tournament, including Gonzaga, but I'm not sure that their offense can do it. You brought up Gonzaga's Nigel Williams-Goss and all West Coast performers, Shimmick, Karnowski. I think that's going to be a lot of size, depth, and talent for these Gamecocks to overcome. So with that being said, for some crazy reason, I'm agreeing with the meatball here. I got the Zags coming out of the West.
Well, guys, I myself am going to pick South Carolina to knock off Gonzaga and keep their historic postseason run rolling right along. Our second game of the night features more chalk, this time with 1-seed North Carolina facing 3-seed Oregon. Oregon lost big man Chris Boucher before the Pac-12 championship, but the Ducks have stepped up their game to make up for the loss, especially guard Tyler Dorsey. He's put up at least 20 points in each of Oregon's last 7 games. Dorsey was a starter all season, but he's really kicked his play into high gear during this last bit of the season. North Carolina also has a breakout star, Luke May, who averaged just 13.8 minutes per game in the regular season. May has been on a tear in March, scoring 17 points against Kentucky, 16 versus Butler, and going 5 for 8 from the three-point country in those 2 games. And, of course, don't forget that legendary shot with 0.3 of a second left against Kentucky to clinch the Final Four berth. Will Dorsey and the Ducks fly by the heels and into contention for their first national championship since the first NCAA tournament in 1939? Or will May and North Carolina add more hardware to an already full cabinet of a legendary basketball program? Pete, what do you think?
Well, Aaron, I'm glad you brought up my 2 favorite guys here in March Madness. So far, I call him Mr. March Madness, Tyler Dorsey himself. I just think for Oregon to overcome the lack of talent depth that North Carolina has and the experience that they have with playing in a national championship last season, I think it's going to be tough for him to score 20-plus points for the 8th consecutive game, and that's something the Ducks must have going forward with the injury that Aaron mentioned in Chris Boucher. With that being said, my other guy of the tournament, though, is Luke May, the hero in Memphis, Tennessee. After 11 p.m., the shot goes down. He's at his 8 o'clock a.m. class on Monday morning in Chapel Hill. So good for him. Shout out to Luke May. Because of that demeanor, because of that attitude, Coach Williams recruits that kind of guy, former walk-on. I love the attitude of these Tar Heels going forward. I'm sticking with my previous pick from North Carolina coming out of this division, keeping the Tar Heels out of the South region.
I like it. I do. I like the Tar Heels as well. It's just hard to go against all that talent, especially when you consider that the Tar Heels missed 12 of 15 three-pointers in their last game, and they still ended up winning that game because they shot 56% from inside the arc. Inside the paint, they're unstoppable, and to me, I think that's what gets them. But just to play devil's advocate, because that's what we do here on Second Take, the Final Four is full of star athletes who can create matchups and dominate without the ball in their hand. And that's exactly what Oregon has in Jordan Bell. His 8 blocks against Kansas established an NCAA tournament record for a Pac-12 player. Kansas struggled inside because Bell has protected the rim. And he's that special kind of player that can play multiple positions. But like I said earlier with Gonzaga, it's depth that gets you through. And unfortunately, without Chris Boucher, I don't think it's enough. And I think the Tar Heels make it.
Likewise.
Aaron.
Well, I'm going chalk here and taking North Carolina to Glendale for a South-North championship game against the Gamecocks. I like their tenacity and the fight that they put up against a tough Kentucky team last Sunday night. And from there, I like them to win all the marbles. Now, of course, I could be wrong. South Carolina are playing like men with something to prove, and I think that out of the other 3 teams, they are the second most likely to win this thing. They're hot at the right time. SEC Player of the Year, Sedarius Thornwell is an offensive monster, and his team is pulling their weight to back him up. Nick, who's your championship pick, and who do you see as someone that could be a dark horse here?
Championship for me, as I said earlier, it's going to be Gonzaga. It's going to be the Bulldogs simply because they have the depth. North Carolina is going to be very tough to beat, but I think that depth gets them through that adversity, and they're able to hold up that trophy at the end, and they're cutting down the nets. As far as upset pick, yeah, you know, as much as everyone loves South Carolina and that gritty, nasty defense, I'm gonna go with Oregon. I think Oregon can do it. They're gonna need a lot of luck. They're gonna need a lot of shots to fall. But as I said earlier, Jordan Bell, he's a great player who can play multiple positions, and he gives them a chance in every game they play. So I'll go with Oregon on this one as far as my upset. But at the end of the day, the Zags are winning it.
Well, no surprise here, but me and the Meatball are going to disagree yet again. As far as the national champion goes, I'm rolling with my pre-tournament pick, the guys I've had filled out in my bracket the entire time, and that's the Tar Heels out of North Carolina. You mentioned depth with Gonzaga. They are loaded in the guard position, but the Tar Heels of Carolina have that depth plus the experience. And playing in the national championship last year with guards Justin Jackson, and Jamal Berry. I think that's going to be super tough for the Zags rather, to overcome. Coach Few coaching in his first Final Four. I think Coach Williams has the edge there as far as experience as well. And to answer your question, Aaron, about the sleeper, I too am rolling with the South Carolina Gamecocks. If there's anybody that would love to take down the big name in the Carolinas, and that's North Carolina, if South Carolina gets there, watch out, Tar Heels, because they're coming at you. But as far as that goes, thanks again for spending time with us. I'm Pistol Pete alongside the Meatball. Aaron, we're back to you.
Well, come Tuesday morning, we will know who is the best team in the nation and who among us here is right and who among us is dumb. Thank you for joining us as we speculate and prognosticate. For Pete and Nick, I'm Aaron, and this has been Second Take.